film photographer here and professional photography educator, and by that I mean that I make little videos about it. And today I will endeavor to answer 20 film photography questions in 20 minutes. I've seen this video format going around and it seems like a lot of fun. I have compiled the questions in today's video from a variety of sources. Some of them are recurring questions that I see on Reddit and Threads. A few of them were submitted by viewers like you. A few of them were submitted to me on Instagram, and a few are from my own search history. See if you can guess which are which. I tried to order these questions from least to most advanced. So if you're an experienced film photographer, you might get more out of the second half of the video, and film newbies will get more out of the first half. But I did do my best to pick questions that would be interesting to most people. So if that all sounds good, stick around. If you like this video, you can like it. You can also subscribe to my channel to see more like it. And if you want, you can leave a comment letting me know what you think. If you have any pressing questions that I didn't address in this video, I do have enough questions to do a second one of these in the future, so let me know if that's something you want to see. If this video is longer than 20 minutes, then I look forward to all of the comments saying, this video was longer than 20 minutes. I'm not changing the title. I'm gonna stick with the 20 minutes thing no matter what. So I'm racing against the clock now. Let's jump in and start with question number one. Number one. What is the difference between ASA and ISO? ISO is one of the three pillars of photography, I'm sure you know, alongside shutter speed and aperture, and it's actually an initialism for International Standardization Organization. I guarantee none of y'all knew that. It acts as a measure of light sensitivity in film. Low ISO ratings are not as sensitive as higher ones. I know this is just like the basics. ASA is also an initialism. It stands for American Standards Association, and it's an earlier term used in the United States to refer to light sensitivity in film. In 1974, ASA standards and DIN standards, those are the German ones, were combined into ISO standards. This is why older film stocks and cameras will refer to ASA, but modern materials use ISO. 2. What is pushing/pulling film? Basically, shooting film at a different ISO than the box speed, and then altering the development time to accommodate that new speed. Box speed, if you didn't know, is the ISO at which you should shoot the film for best results. So if I have a box speed of 200 ISO and I meter the film to 400 ISO, I'm pushing the film. I gotta leave it in the developer for longer to compensate for the underexposure. If I have a box of 200 ISO and I'm metering it at 100 ISO, I'm pulling the film, and I gotta develop it for a shorter amount of time to compensate for overexposure. If you don't develop your own photos, make sure to tell the lab that the film is being pushed or pulled, and then they can adjust the development times accordingly. You should also know what a stop is. I don't have time to explain that to you because I only have 20 minutes, so I'm moving on, but look it up if you don't know. Number 3, why didn't my disposable camera photos work out? I see this question almost daily on Reddit, and I can give you an answer that applies to 90% of cases. First, a note on aperture. Low apertures let in a lot of light, but they have a really narrow plane of focus, and everything that's not in that plane is going to be blurry. High apertures will not let in a lot of light, but they have a really wide plane of things that will be in focus. Disposable cameras do not have a way for you to adjust the focus, so they need to have a really high aperture in order to make sure that their plane of focus is wide enough to actually get some things in focus. Anything super close to the camera is going to be blurry, and they need a lot of light to actually produce decent photos because that aperture is so narrow. If you're not using flash indoors, for example, your photos are going to come out really dark. And it doesn't matter how much light it looks like there is in the room, I guarantee you, with a disposable camera, it's not enough. Even outdoor shots on cloudy days can come out pretty underexposed. This is true of disposables as well as most inexpensive point-and-shoot cameras. Number 4. Do I need a 35mm lens to shoot 35mm film? I love this question. No, the 35mm are unrelated. In a lens, the 35mm refers to the focal length. So that's the distance between the lens and the focal point. Lenses from 20mm all the way up to 200mm are fairly common. You'll see them around quite a bit. And beginners usually go for like a 35, a 50, or an 85, depending on their needs. In film, on the other hand, the 35mm refers to the film gauge or format. It is by far the most common size of film, but you'll also see 120 and 110 on occasion. Number 5. There are so many different cameras, how do I pick the right one? If you're just starting out with film photography, I recommend starting small with a really simple point and shoot. Cheap, no settings, just a flash. If you're looking to level up, I recommend grabbing a camera from the 90s that allows you to change the lens. Cameras from that era also have autofocus a lot of the time, and that's obviously super useful, especially since film costs money and missing focus on something can burn like 70 cents. Overall though, I would recommend popping into your local used camera store and chatting with the folks behind the counter about your budget and shooting style. That's what I did, and I walked out with the Nikon F801S, which has served me faithfully for many years since. Number 6. Why are my images blurry? This could be an issue with shutter speed. A low shutter speed will create motion blur if you're not using a tripod. That's more of a photography issue than a film photography issue. But it could also be an issue with the focus. So some film cameras use infrared sensors for autofocus, and if the sensor is blocked or damaged, the autofocus won't work properly. If you're using a point and shoot, you might not notice until you get the photos developed, and then you're wondering why they're all blurry. Aperture could also play a role. If your camera has a fixed aperture, like a point and shoot, and you're taking a picture of something in front of the focal plane, the subject will be out of focus in the resulting image. I see a lot of people on Reddit with issues like this, and usually it's because they've bought a random film camera for like $10 at a charity shop. That's a great deal, but older cameras can have a lot of things wrong with them that you might not expect, equivalent to having like a screw loose somewhere, which is why I always recommend buying from fellow photographers and dedicated camera people. Number 7, why are my images foggy? Usually, this is how film looks when it is underexposed. Make sure that you're letting enough light into the shutter, and I recommend getting a light meter, especially if you're experiencing this issue over and over again. If you can find a camera with a built-in light meter, all the better. If you're metering everything right, but you're shooting with expired film, you might also get results that look like this. Older film is less sensitive to light, and therefore more prone to underexposure. So if your film is a few years out of date, you may want to overexpose it by a stop or two to compensate. Number 8, why are my Polaroids super dark? Oh, these are not Polaroids. They're not. And I will die on this hill. These are instant film photographs manufactured by Fujifilm Instax. It is a totally different company than Polaroid, and you'll see them a lot because they're way less expensive, because they've done so much more R&D to make their product affordable to consumers. What was the question? Okay, refer to answer number 3, because most instant cameras have similar focusing and exposure systems to disposable and point-and-shoot cameras, and chances are you just need to turn on the flash. Number 9. Why do people store film in the fridge? Basically, colder temperatures will extend the lifespan of your film. Film has a bunch of different chemicals in it, like a ton, and a lot of them will degrade over time. Environmental factors like heat and humidity will accelerate that degradation, and this will affect the film's color and light sensitivity. If you're storing film for longer than a few weeks, especially color film, you really want to keep it as dry as possible and below 13 degrees Celsius. For most folks, that's going to be in the canister, in a box, in a bag, in the fridge. 3 layers of humidity protection and a controlled temperature environment. Number 10. Is expired film still worth shooting? Yes, if it was stored properly and you're not paying full price for it. If you know that it was refrigerated for most of its life, it should be safe to shoot as long as it's only a few years out of date. The older the expiry date, the sketchier the film. The dyes in film break down at different rates, so old film might have some pretty skewed colors. If the film was stored incorrectly, those color shifts may be pretty dramatic. There's like a general rule that you should overexpose film by 1 stop for every 10 years it's expired. So if it's a 400 ISO film that expired in 2015, meter it at 200. Halfway there!
Woo! We're at the halfway point. Doing great so far.
Number 11. Do I have to develop my own film? No. Most cities have at least one lab where you can get your film developed. I use the Lab Vancouver for my color film. Big box retailers like London Drugs also have photo labs that will develop film, but I recommend going with smaller labs if you have one, because they can give better care to your photos. I've gotten some wacky results from London Drugs. There are also online services like the Darkroom that do mail-in film development. But actually, I heard some bad stuff about the Darkroom a while ago. I don't really remember much of it except that they don't treat their employees very well, so pick somewhere else if you can. Number 12. How do I scan my film? You can have your lab scan it, but that's usually really expensive, so maybe don't do that. You can buy a dedicated film scanner. There are 100 different kinds. Some are faster but produce lower quality images, and some are slower but give really high res images. It really just depends on your needs. You can also get an attachment for your camera and do DSLR scans. That's what I do, but I'm actually not loving the results, so I'll probably get a proper scanner in the near future, but it works well for the black and white shots anyway. And that brings me to question number 13. What is DSLR scanning? Basically, it's taking a picture of your negatives with your camera. So you need a macro lens and a negative holder attachment, like this one. You focus on the image, line it up in the holder, and then snap a picture. It is by far the quickest and cheapest way to scan film, but the results really depend on the light source that you're using to illuminate the film from behind. Like if you're using sunlight, it can be really like golden, and so the negatives will shift blue, so you gotta account for that with white balance. Like there's a lot of things to think about that can actually make it a bit tricky to get right. Number 14, what does pan mean in film names? Pan stands for panchromatic. You'll see this a lot on black and white films, and it means that the film is sensitive to the entire visible spectrum of light. Basically, a normal modern black and white film is a panchromatic film. Back in the day, black and white films were orthochromatic, meaning that they weren't sensitive to red light, hence why we now have a word for films that are sensitive to all light, including red. Number 15, what are T grains? You'll see T used in film names like Kodak T-Max, and it refers to tabular grains. These are silver halide crystals that are shaped differently than conventional grains, so they have a larger surface area across a smaller volume, and they lay flat against the emulsion. This means that they are slightly more light sensitive than regular grains, and it allows the film to have a finer grain and higher resolution than conventional grain films of the same box speed. Tabular refers to tablets and not to tables, as the AI overview on Google might tell you. They also do not look like little T's, like I thought they did. They just look like this. Wow, we are making good time. It didn't even occur to me that it might be like well under 20 minutes. That would be embarrassing. I might change the title if that's the case. Number 16, what is a red scale film? Basically, any color film loaded upside down so that light hits the back of the film first. The emulsion is exposed through the base of the film, and light hits the red sensitive layer first. Typically, you would hit the blue sensitive layer and then the green and then the red last, and that gives you a proper color balance. But in red scale, most of the light is captured by the red sensitive layer, so you get a strong red shift with a little bit of green if you really expose it. And no light is reaching the blue layer. I explained this pretty well in my video about Harman Red, so go and check out that video after this one if you're curious. Number 17, can you develop film in coffee? Cathinol. One of two fairly legendary ways to develop film. I actually got to watch this being tested in real time by my film bros, Darren at Learn Film Photography and Dimitri of Analog Cafe. And it works! It does. You can develop film in coffee, and depending on your recipe, you might be able to drink it afterwards. It'll taste like shit, but I don't think it'll kill you. See, coffee contains caffeic acid, which is a phenol. And phenols are acidic compounds that have a lot of extra electrons. When you expose a film grain, a silver halide particle, to light, it will develop a sensitivity speck. And this is basically a little seed that can grow into metallic silver if you give it more electrons to work with. Film developers donate electrons to help those specks grow into metallic silver. Any compound with extra electrons will work to some degree, and these electron-rich phenols can be found in a lot of organic materials. We actually tested a bunch of different alternative developers, including blood, but coffee worked the best by far. Unfortunately, this brings me to question 18. Can you really develop film in pee? Yes and no. Mostly no. Technically, pee has phenols in it as well, so it has long been rumored that this might be possible. Call it the legendary urinol. But we tested it, so go watch Darren's video, Can You Develop Film in Anything, to see the method, but in the end, urinol was extremely ineffective. The solution that was made with pee was actually worse than the control solution, which had no extra phenols in it at all. So there was some compound in the urine that was actively working against the development process. It also performed worse than many of the other random ingredients we tried, including coffee, blood, cedar, marijuana, fir needles, and moss. Disappointing for the memes, but good overall because now y'all don't need to try it. Number 19. What is reciprocity failure? Lord, what is reciprocity failure? My God, that word is so hard to pronounce. It's not even like hard to pronounce. What is reciprocity failure? How to explain this quickly? Reciprocity failure is a failure of the normal reciprocal relationship between shutter speed and aperture, causing an error in exposure. Thanks Nick Carver for that simple definition. Basically, you have a bunch of combinations of aperture and shutter speed that will produce the same level of exposure. Dial your shutter speed up one stop and dial your aperture down one stop, you'll get the same properly exposed image. They have a reciprocal relationship. But at longer shutter speeds and lower light levels, this relationship starts to break down. Reciprocity failure is generally a factor at exposures that are longer than 1 second or extremely quick, like 1/8,000th of a second. And it occurs because the behavior of photons and the array of silver halide particles on the film emulsion are both non-uniform. Each silver halide particle must absorb, I believe, 4 photons in order to undergo a chemical reaction. You gotta charge them puppies up. At lower light levels, photons hit the array of particles less frequently. If you're shooting at like f/22 with an ND filter, you're not letting in a ton of photons. So even if you expose your shot for a second or two, it's still not gonna look the same as it would if you gave it a more consistent spray of light. Literally, there's so much chemistry here, and one answer I saw even started getting into quantum mechanics. All you actually need to know is that you need to compensate for reciprocity failure when you're doing long exposures on film. You can find guidelines on how to do these compensations on film data sheets, and they look like this. And I think we got through that one pretty quick, actually. So, last question here, more of an opinion than a fact, really, but my opinions are correct, so I'm including them. Number 20, is it cheating to edit film photos? This question is just like, it's just so uninformed. People who get hung up on this question put more emphasis on the process than the result, which is kind of like camera people versus photographers, you know what I mean? If you know, you know. All photos are edited in some way to some degree. I made a video about it, go watch it. Film photos have been edited since the dawn of photography, using darkroom techniques like dodge and burn, retouching, dev times, processing methods, etc., etc. And in modern times, some folks like to make a distinction between digital editing and analog editing, saying that one is fine and the other one is cheating. But then, every film photo you've ever seen online has been digitized, a process which involves scanning and inverting the negative, which is editing, right? And then different scanners have different settings, produce different results. So if scanning your film is okay, then you're allowed to alter the colors of your photograph digitally, but not on purpose or with intention, I guess. We gotta draw pretty arbitrary lines around what is editing and what isn't if we're gonna care about it. And then if you want to call it cheating, I mean, cheating implies that there are rules being broken. So you gotta define the rules. Purists might say that any photo that has been scanned is now digital photography and doesn't count as film photography at all. You can only see film photography in print. And like, okay, I guess that makes sense. But in that case, if you're gonna go through the effort of digitizing your photos, then you might as well edit them, because you've already cheated by scanning them. Cheated at what? I don't know. You made art the wrong way, I guess, so that some guy on Reddit with a portfolio full of pictures of his dog can talk down to you. But I guess he's actually the best film photographer, because he's the only one who's actually making film photographs. He can't show them to you, because you're not allowed to take pictures of them, but everyone else out here is just making digital art. This is an annoying question, and that should wrap up the video. But I lied. I actually have 21 questions because this last one is just like too good to ignore. So here's the final question. Question number 21, bonus. Why do people still shoot film when digital is better in every way? Better in every way. This film photo took me 1 minute to capture, and then it took an additional 3 minutes to edit. Could I reproduce it digitally? Sure. Would it take a lot of screwing around in Photoshop with layers, opacity, curves, grain, shadows, etc. to get it right? Yes, it would. It would be annoying as hell to make this kind of photo digitally. It would be possible, but I wouldn't like doing it. And I probably wouldn't do it, to be honest with you. But what do you know? These are my favorite kind of photos to make. What about film soup, okay? How would you make this digitally? Buy a brush pack, download some PNGs, scan a stain in, and then save it as a transparent PNG? Bruh, I don't know. It would be possible, but it wouldn't be like fun for people who like getting creative and spontaneous. There would be nothing spontaneous about creating this digitally. Arduous maybe. Or what about these creative shots? Could you make these digitally? Yeah, sure. Could I? No. I'm actually not super great at Photoshop. Like, I taught myself everything I know while sitting at the back of my class and ignoring my high school math teacher. Surprise, surprise though, the guy who asked this question was a sports, macro, and wildlife photographer. So, okay, sure. Digital is better than film if you're taking action shots or you're trying to nail incredibly tight focus or taking 20,000 images of a bird in flight, right? I use digital for most of my client work because shooting a runway show or like a wedding on film sounds like a nightmare fever dream that'll cost you $5,000 in raw materials. There's a time and place for film, for sure. But for the kind of photos that I like to make, film is way more efficient. And aside from the super creative attributes, different film stocks have different colors baked in. You got grain, contrast, halation, color, all of these settings ready to go before you even take the shot. You could play around and get these effects in Photoshop, like you can do that with some effort. Or you can get them straight out of the camera with film. It's just easier if you're looking for certain tones and vibes. If your client wants a film look, which many clients do, let me tell you, it's easier to get that look by shooting film than trying to reduce the ultra sharp, high definition image from a DSLR down to something that's believably lo-fi and nostalgic without pixelization and postering and all kinds of digital artifacts and things that happen when you screw around with digital photography too much. I don't know, is it possible? Sure. Is it easy for people who don't know Photoshop that well? Nah. I could also mention the meditative aspect of shooting film, right? Like knowing you have a finite number of photos available forces you to think carefully about each one, to care about each one more than you care about the 10,000 digital photos that you took of the same thing. But if you're a film photographer, which statistically you probably are, you're already familiar with all of the benefits of film, that's why you shoot it. There will always be camera guys who see the unique qualities of film photography as defects rather than assets, and they will always leave bitter comments because they spent $8,000 on camera gear last year and they need to justify it somehow. We don't have to listen to them, because art is as much about the process as it is about the end result. And if you prefer your process to look like this rather than this, I mean, I totally get it, because this looks like a lot of unnecessary bullshit. That wraps up today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to leave a like, subscribe, comment. Actually, check out also my print shop. Yeah, I have a print shop now. You should go check it out. I have a bunch of my favorite film photos uploaded there. They're all available for sale in different sizes, and I get a really good chunk of the revenue. So if you like my work and you want a piece of these beautiful tones and vibes to hang on your wall, go and check it out. It's like YouTuber merch, but not cringe, and hopefully not gonna end up in a landfill anytime soon. This is week 3 of doing weekly videos, so everybody has to clap. Thank you, thank you. I will see you next week with a new video, and in the meantime, I want you all to stay sharp, and don't forget to keep shooting. Bye, guys.